trips, including but not limited to field trips, athletic events, and conventions, will be at the sole discretion of the attending coach, sponsor, or teacher. It goes on to talk about parent communication, how they should continue to do that through the office, and limiting the students' permissions to use other messaging features of school devices. These changes will be reflected in your student handbook, which is why I'm presenting this now before Beth does.
Y'all have any questions or Dr. Lee?
I'm making a motion to, we don't, this ain't the one we accepting.
It's action.
Yeah.
This is
Accept those things.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Murphy, second by Mr. Frank. I thought that Francis had a question or comment.
No, I didn't. I was pointing out to make a motion, sorry.
Any other discussion on this topic? Any other questions? All right, we will put it on, our next board agenda, and number 2 is, 25-26 Student Rights and Responsibilities Handbook. We have Ms. Beth Tomlin.
Good evening. And so we had our committee meeting last week and we went through the suggested changes. I have a list for y'all. You do have a copy of the draft, but I made it a little bit easier so it referenced each sheet. I'll go through them pretty quickly because luckily we didn't have a lot. It looks like a lot, but there's just a few things that needed to be changed. And so obviously the dates changed and we had a sentence added about consequences for violating uniform policy. There were some changes with health and wellness due to legislation being repealed. And so for number 3, you'll see that there was reference to required legislation for breast self-examinations and cervical cancer information. That required legislation was repealed. And so although that might still be covered in health education, it is no longer required. Also with immunization requirements, they are no longer able to be requirements, they are to be requests. And so we had to change that language to reflect that. Under health and wellness, again, we had medication. When students go out of state.
Could you say the page numbers each time, because I can't find them both of them.
Oh, okay, yes, sir. Which page? Okay, so I was on 37. You want my hand? Well,
No,
you
no,
want me
no.
to You got it, yes, sir. 37 should be where the health and wellness is.
Page 30.
And really, you should be able to scroll through and there should be different colors for you.
There you
You good?
go.
Okay, so I'm on page 50 actually now on this one, page 50 and 51. It applies to medication for out-of-state field trips. We had to work with Dr. Simmons on that one because there was some legislation that was required. We had to give parents an option. Now, this is if they opt out of self-administration. There are 2 different options that a parent can do because we cannot prevent a child from going on a field trip if they take medication. So there's some options for parents if their child is going out of state on a field trip.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, I just want to go back to the immunization.
Yeah.
Okay, when a child first starts school, do they need to be immunized or what? What is it?
Well, they're no longer required. It is highly suggested and it is requested and we can provide for that, but we have to provide them with information regarding exemptions because they are allowed to have exemptions from immunizations.
So that, I'm not on the committee, I'm gonna wait.
I'm not on committee either, so I just got that.
I'll wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. And remember that was a legislative requirement that we did take out the word requirement. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions about that one?
Everybody will have the measles or something like that.
All right, and so, so that was the medication. When you good with that? Number 6 on page 56 is in the wellness policy, there was a reference that restricted employees from having food items on campus, and so we just took that out because we didn't want to restrict the employees from having food. All right, for number 7, page 60, okay, so the next 7 through 11, we'll go through some technology information.
Page 60.
Page 60, yes, ma'am. Now, it's not gonna be page 60 on the PDF, it's gonna be page 60 actually in the book.
Page number in the PDF.
Yes, the page number that's listed at the bottom of the page.
60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not it's gonna be.
Page
I'll tell you,
75.
It's gonna be 75 on the list. All right, and so we worked with our technology department to get the next few items. And so under technology on page 60, some unauthorized software And I really would not be able to explain what any of those are, but my lovely technology director is here. But we do have some unauthorized software that is listed there as examples. That is not all of them, because as soon as we outlaw all of them, I'm sure they would find some other ones. But it does have things like gaming and entertainment software and things like that. But there's a list of downloaded and shareable files and things that I don't know anything about. But things that would make our devices at risk. So we want to make sure that those are not allowed. Page 63 through 64 is new, so I'm going to let you get a second to get to that. If you are not aware of artificial intelligence, you will be, and it is becoming real and very usable. Great things that we can do with AI, but there are also some things that we need to make sure that we have in policy that allows us to have acceptable use. We want to be able to use it to educate our kids, but we want to make sure that they are using it responsibly. And one of the things that is scary, obviously, is the privacy and data protection. And so, like I said, Mr. Lambert is on top of this. His team worked on an acceptable use policy for us, and that is what we are. This is the first time we're including this. And so I anticipate as we, progress, we might add things or have to adjust that. But this is, we felt that it was time that we had an acceptable use policy in our handbook. Any questions about that one?
Where did this language come from?
It came from my technology department. They took several examples of ones that were already developed and pieced together the ones that they wanted to, make sure that we
From
included.
like other districts?
Yes, sir. Well, districts, organizations, most companies now have them, corporations. It's becoming a very prevalent thing for companies to have an acceptable use policy. Lots of colleges have adopted them, so we just kind of work together. It's not extremely specific because you don't know what you need to deal with. And so as things come up, I'm sure we'll have to tweak it. So, but it was important for us to start that. All right, the policy on electronic, sorry, I don't have there's a bug. Can you say something? Is that what you said?
No, it's page 65 next.
No, yes, ma'am. I'm going to page 65, which was the policy that Dr. Muse just presented to y'all. We have new requirements that were spelled out in Bulletin 741 from Bessie. Basically, what they wanted to do was define what use of the telecommunication device is, and they wanted to make sure that we had the instructional day. And so we couldn't be specific about a time because, of course, our middle school and our high school started at a different time than our primary schools, and they ended at a different time. So we went with instructional day being the beginning of the day bell and the end of the day bell. And so that is when it's prevented to be from being used. Dr. Muse also told you that we made specific language. We have a lot of our teams and, our travel, especially in high school, they're going to travel a good bit. We want to make sure that these kids have an ability to be able to communicate with their parents to get picked up or to do whatever. So we wanted it to be at the discretion of a teacher, sponsor, or coach that took them on their field trip or game. And the rest of the, there is, for those that, I'm trying to see if it was in here, there is also an incorporation of what an emergency is. These policies do not prevent someone from using their cell phone in the event of emergency, and we actually define what emergency is. It's an imminent threat to public health or safety, or that could result in the loss of life, injury, or property. So if there was an instance where there was an emergency on the campus, a child would be able to use their phone. And Dr. Muse did point out specifically smartwatches. I had never heard of Meta smart glasses until January 1st. And so we made sure that we had those included as well. But there are so many different devices that they can receive telecommunications on, and they made sure to say specifically that kids cannot use any school device for personal social use. So that means they can't get on their Snapchat accounts and things like that. So we want to make sure that was included. Any questions about the electronic communications policy being added? Okay, so then number 10 and 11 go kind of with the device contract that we have for our one-to-one devices. There is a note that included, again, as things happen and we have to make these adjustments. But for the damage coverage, there is a payment that the parent can pay by November. And so if they did not pay that payment, they might be responsible for the damages so we give them from the beginning of school to the end of November to make that payment. And then they could have to be charged the full price for a repair. Sometimes when kids' devices get lost or stolen, that also is, something that comes up. A stolen device, we obviously do not want a parent to have to pay for a device that has been stolen, but we do require that they obtain a police report so that device can be then tracked and hopefully recovered. And so once the child or the parent submits that, we do issue them a replacement device for, without additional cost. All right, number 12. The rest of them are kind of just like edits, but if you go to, if you want to scroll down to 73, there was a note that it was the personnel director that incidents needed to be reported to. So it was just a change in who that incident was reported to. Again, on page 74, there was a repeated line, so that just came out as an edit. You'll be happy to know that we had very few things that we needed to add to our discipline policy.
Yeah.
That was the reason why the meeting was actually convened originally, because that's the one that's required by law. But if you look at 14, 15, and 16, those are the only ones that had to deal with discipline. And as I said, the state only has 50 codes, but you know that there are more than 50 things that can probably happen in a school in a day. But we wanted to make sure that we specifically addressed if a student violated a stay away agreement. That is one of our preventive measures to prevent a fight from happening or any kind of incident or some kind of a situation where kids are having issues. We'll institute a stay away agreement. If a child violates it, we want to make sure that they're able to be held accountable for their actions. And that was not specified in the list. And also with our new artificial intelligence policy, we want to make sure that is spelled out as well. They can receive consequences for violating the artificial intelligence policy. We had an omission last year. Y'all remember that this year was the year that they changed it to where multiple suspensions. There were 3 allowed. They were allowed 3 before they were recommended for expulsion, and so that typo did not get corrected. We changed it in like 7 places. We missed 1, and that would have been on page 87. So that is not a new law. That is just a correction in a typo. And then one thing the state did say is although you can be recommended for expulsion with 3 suspensions, that does not count tardies and dress code suspensions. So we needed to note that on our tardy policy, which it actually said that your suspensions for tardies could count toward an expulsion. So we had to take that line out.
That was the, Beth, look at the blue.
Yes.
Right through on that.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Number 17, page 110 has to do with Title IX. It is just a statement, we get guidance on Title IX procedures, and one of the things that was added was to make sure that the evidence is kept confidential in a Title IX case. And so we wanted to make sure that in our procedures that was noted, that they needed to keep the evidence confidential because it does have names and things on it as they gather their evidence. And then the last one came to me from Dr. Muse's department in HR, and that was the Teacher's Bill of Rights, and that was edited specifically to address policy that they received.
It's a change in state law.
It's a change in state law. And it is very cumbersome to read and a little bit difficult, so I had to read it a couple of times. But that is straight out of the law. A teacher has the right to complete only paperwork that is not excessively burdensome, and that if required by law or regulation, adheres to the law or regulation, and does not result in overly cumbersome interpretations of the law or regulation. So that's a little cumbersome, but
It is.
this.
That's why we got this DA.
All right, and so that takes us through the things that we needed to edit to the handbook to make it in compliance with some of the laws that were passed. And so this would go into effect, obviously, with the new school year.
All right, John, any other comments? Any?
I just want to get educated, if you don't mind, on number 15.
Yes, sir.
Just what all on that's expelling, unless otherwise mandated by law, students expelled for 3 suspensions and 4 through K through 5.
Yes, sir.
So I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. So when we go to expel a kindergartner,
Yes,
a
sir.
phone might ring,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And I just want to make sure
Absolutely.
that we understand. So 4 suspensions, K through 5.
They are out, they shall be, and it says shall be
Shall.
recommended for expulsion.
And that means they have to be, the shall means you have to do it. Am I correct?
So there's,
State law.
Yeah. So where they going?
I'm not mad at it. I just want to make sure I
We
understand.
we do have a
I think
few
there's a
primary
few.
school
Yeah, I remember.
students.
There's a few that needed to
And
be.
they are at Apple.
Yes, it do.
Look,
I know.
Well, they need to be on medicine, I guess.
the K
I'm
through,
not gonna be fucking serious.
when
Don't know.
they doing something bad, because.
Well, and I think as part of this let teachers teach component, we're trying to make sure that the teachers are able to teach in their classrooms.
And we don't just expel a kid from our school, right? They still get counseling.
Alternative.
They still are allowed their education. We still keep them up on
Alternative.
what they should be doing on their grade level.
Yeah.
And then after whatever days that we've given them, in most cases, it's usually, 90 days and they do 45, then we allow them to acclimate back to our school. So it's not
I am not mad at this at all. I just kind
Right.
of wanted also to make sure that everybody else, the board members,
Yeah,
that's a big
that
change.
was legislation that passed,
Absolutely.
last June when we
Yeah.
incorporated it. It actually went into the handbook as an addendum, because when legislation passed, it was June, we had done our handbook.
Handbook already.
So we had to add it, and we've been working with, the principals, because the 3 suspensions was a big change for high school as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
we had kids that, once you get to 2, you're on the verge of being recommended, and so we've had to do a lot of,
Right.
preventative measures. Now, remember, that is for suspension, so there are alternatives that we have for giving consequences to suspensions.
depending on.
And so we want to make sure that those are, particularly in the grades, that's reserved for very,
Right.
severe cases.
Any other board member? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at page 112, the actual 112, and I'm looking at number, it's 9. It talks about the gender, I guess. I'm just kind of confused. I want to know why.
Hold on 1 second. So you're looking at page
112.
number 9.
Where it says courage, means why is this scratching out?
Because they said it was just, I think it was just to make it more simplistic. It wasn't that females are excluded from it. It was just to make the sentence flow
So
better.
Amanda made that suggestion, is that what it was?
I have no idea who made the suggestion, but it was made in our policy committee.
Why?
And I think probably for proper English.
English, so everything's male oriented? Excuse me, all right, is that?
Can I make a motion to accept these changes, please?
We
Second.
got a motion by Mr. John Murphy, we got a second by Mr.
I
Brian
already
Francis.
go.
Any other comments? All right, I need,
Second.
closing the meeting, we got adjournment by Mr. Francis, and we got a second by Mr. Murphy. Okay.
Thank you.
Those
All
are-
right. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Good job.
Right.